Thanks for tuning in to Inside the Humidor. I'm Josh Mills. This is Ed Brandyberry. We'll be getting into our episode shortly where we'll talk about our very own cigar brand, the Stack Lancaster. And what else am I talking about?
That's the big thing.
All right, there it is. Stay tuned. Thank you for tuning in.
Welcome to Inside the Humidor. I'm your host, Josh Eagle, along, as always, with the lovely and talented Ed Brandyberry and Joshua Mills. Today, we're going to talk about...
Wait.
Uh-oh. We're going to switch... What's going on out there in TV land, folks? The hat is getting switched.
Well, now you can tell them why.
Because we're going to talk about a cigar that is very near and dear to us. It is actually our own brand called the Stack. And this is our first release. Call it the Lancaster. It is a cigar produced in the factories of AJ Fernandez in Esteli, Nicaragua. We're very proud of how it turned out. The band has meaning behind it, and we'll get into that a little bit later in the show. But the Lancaster, it comes from the wrapper that's on this cigar, which is made in Lancaster County here in Pennsylvania. So you have a USA wrapper and you have Nicaraguan on the inside, and we'll break it down a little bit. What else are you going to talk about today, boys?
Well, I know you guys went down there to actually do some blending and got to work with AJ and his father Ishmael, so I didn't actually get to go on that trip. I was away.
That description can be short, because when it comes to them, they're so amazing when we tell them what we're looking for, that they wrap it up and say, here, how's this? And it's almost that simple with them. I mean, we had a few blends they made for us. Sorry, AJ. We had a few that he made for us that we weren't as happy, excited about.
Right.
But really, really fantastic on it.
Well, I think we'll change up the whole show since Ed's taken the Perdomo hat off and put the Stack hat on. I'm going to let Josh Mills be the host of this show. He can ask the questions, so let's do a little Chinese fire drill here.
Woefully unprepared.
It's a Nicaraguan fire drill.
I didn't know we were having a Nicaraguan fire drill.
You have your passports ready, guys?
All right.
Well.
So I guess, because I haven't talked to you guys too much about this whole process yet either. So I mean, how did the process start? What was first contact with AJ Fernandez like when you guys looked to?
That was really exciting, and unfortunately, AJ was going through a bad personal time because his wife had to have surgery, and so he was in and out of the factory and what was going on there. But we got to meet with him a couple times, and I had sent advance notice of things we were looking for in blends. We were really after a Maduro, which we got. That's what we have here. We were really looking for a Maduro. We already had the Habano that we had before, the first Stack Habano, and that'll be a later story. But this particular one, we also had a Mexican San Andreas that he had blended for us, and an Ecuadorian Habano Rosado Oscuro. Mm-hmm. And the Ecuadorian Habano Rosado Oscuro is a really, really fine. It's actually, I think that was Josh and my favorite.
Yes.
But it's just, it's about the color of this table.
Okay.
The wrapper, and it's really, really a rich, full-flavored and full-bodied cigar.
Okay.
And we ended up kind of getting into almost a full-body cigar here with the way that it plays out in the spice, but it kind of backs off. So basically the process did start with an email chain using John Demharter, a rep from AJ Fernandez. We had a Connecticut down there, multiple Habanos, multiple Connecticut's. The ones that Ed described were the ones we kind of had singled out when we went down there as things that we really enjoyed to move forward in the process. You know, and how it goes is obviously we're not tobacco rollers or professional blenders yet. So we had to rely on the expertise of the people that know what they're doing. So they had a full tray of cigars to sample through, which we did over a few days.
So you called down there and you kind of gave them some parameters, what you were looking for. Right. And then you show up down there and they have
them ready to go.
Up for you.
Yep.
Okay.
And then we had the ability to tweak, if you wanted, we wanted to tweak some things, but we really had two choices that we really wanted to go with right away. That we might have made another decision if they would have given us a different answer
At that time.
at that time. But, you know, the product that came out is a very nice peppery cigar, medium to full body. It's got that Nicaraguan characteristics where you got a lot of that black pepper. The wrapper is a not necessarily an oily wrapper. It's a nice dry wrapper. It produces a lot of smoke. On the tongue, even with the pepper, there's not a lot of bite to it. Aftertaste, the finish is still pretty smooth for a cigar with this strength on it.
Yes, I think the after finish, I don't know if your experience is the same, but I think that if anything is hanging around afterwards, it's the sweetness from the wrapper.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That seems to...
It's a very pleasant finish.
Yeah, very pleasant on that way.
And just like any cigar, these cigars aren't for everybody and everybody's palate. But if you like a nice spicy, if you like the Nicaraguan profile, if you like some of the sweetness that the Pennsylvania broadleaf wrapper has, you're going to enjoy this smoke. So we're happy with that. And the fun thing is, you know, we flew into Nicaragua for this particular process in a season that we don't normally go. Actually, the plants were just babies or being planted in the fields. Usually when they have tours, the plants are full grown, so it's more majestic when you go down there. That stuck out to me as something kind of neat when you're going down to look at that. We were the only people there other than the one other guy that came with us.
Another retailer.
And we stayed in the White House, which is their guest home, which is gigantic, and there was literally 4 of us, and they still had
Separate
a bartender, cooks, and maid for us 4. So
It's very hospital down
yeah,
there.
very
Yes.
hospitable down there.
The bartender actually, his job was to stay there with us. Our cameraman wouldn't enjoy this, but the bartender was to stay with us until we went to bed.
Yep.
Okay.
And he'd walk over, and you could all the bottles, Florida Cognac, all the bottles were ours to drink, and you would walk over there, he would pour it. There's like 2 of us sitting in a giant room, and you'd walk over, and he'd still pour your alcohol for you. So it was pretty funny.
We tried to let him go. We tried to let him go,
Yeah.
and
like, no.
our contact down there, Ricky Somoza, he was like, oh no, that's his job. That's why he's here. You don't
Just
send
wait
him
around
out.
on you guys.
Yeah, wait around. That's what he's here for. And so we were treated very well.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. And then AJ also knew that I really liked his cigar Pinolero, which was no longer being sold. And so he went into his own personal humidor and still had Pinoleros. He said that they were from his original year of production.
Okay.
And he presented me with 5, and I shared them all.
Yeah.
But he presented me with 5
The original
of the
OG
original
Pinot
Pinolero,
That's
which
awesome.
has its own story connected with us.
And that Pinolero, you know, we actually got a lot of traction with that inside of the store, you know, here in Moon. It was a nice selling cigar. I think that the branding was a little strange in the Pinolero. The box started
Then
out.
they changed the box.
And they changed the box to a bright blue color, and it kind of just died out. But the cigar itself had gotten, you know, good acclaim. Just didn't hit the
Highly rated.
Highly rated. It
Yeah.
just didn't hit the manufactured market, and that happens with cigars.
Oh yeah.
You know, there's some that come through with huge ratings, and for some reason, it just doesn't hit. I mean, there's a lot of marketing involved in this. There's a lot of.
I think the key problem with the original Pinolero release is that it could sit right next to AJ Fernandez's, and you didn't know it was an AJ Fernandez. It had kind of its own identity on the band and everything else.
And that was something that down there we got to be actually relatively involved in the process, because Ricky was in the process of trying to change that over, actually.
Right.
So he was trying to get that AJF branding on each one of his cigars. So somewhere you saw AJF to know, and I think a lot of companies at that time, like 2012, 2013, a lot of companies were putting out almost like a whole different brand altogether and kind of detaching their own name from themselves. And I don't necessarily know if that helped the industry at all.
I don't think that builds your own brand. I think it's bad branding. I mean, that's my opinion.
I agree with it. I don't even know if those cigars even like stuck around that much when they did those types of moves. I know that Villiger.
Yeah, Villiger definitely jumps to mind.
They went to like 10 different types of brands, and I just don't think that helps when you have a brand portfolio, and especially when we're looking for customer. If you have a poor brand reputation, maybe I see you throw it out there. But like
Villiger's big in Europe, and they are having a heck of a time making inroads in this country. They might deny that.
Right.
Go ahead. Well, someone from Villiger wants to come on and talk about
deny
that.
that,
We'll
that'd
be
be
glad
awesome.
to have you
It'll
on
be
the
a debate
show.
style format.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just make sure you bring me a Colorado. So.
And yeah, some of the Villiger cigars are nice, but not to get too far off topic. The Ricky had some branding meetings, and they're going to try to get more, and you can see some of their newer cigars. They've stuck with that. They might be called something different. There's a brand new cigar called Bella Artes, which we actually got to see the early process, and I'm actually hanging the nets to grow Connecticut tobacco in Nicaragua, and the finished product is that Bella Artes, which is. Josh, you tell me what it is because I haven't smoked it, to be honest with you.
Oh, it's a Connecticut Nicaraguan hybrid. So they took 2 different strands of Nicaraguan tobacco and then American Connecticut shade tobacco. They kind of hybridized them, and they grew them down there in Nicaragua. And so what you get is if I handed that cigar to somebody, I didn't say anything about it being Connecticut, I don't think they'd ever guess, because it doesn't look it, has a very reddish tint, has a rosado kind of finish looking to it. And I wouldn't necessarily say it tastes like a Connecticut either. I think knowing that there's Connecticut in there, I can taste it just by tricking myself into thinking that it's there. But it's got some of the creamy characteristics you'd expect from a Connecticut, but it has all the characteristics and flavor of a Nicaraguan through and through. So it's an interesting smoke.
It is an interesting smoke. I found it to be enjoyable.
Do you think if I gave that to you blind, you'd guess there's anything with Connecticut in there?
No, I don't think so.
Probably not. Yeah.
Not as easily, anyhow.
Yeah.
There is an occasional that Connecticut bitterness occasionally in there, but I'd have had to really stop and think about what's going on here. I haven't sat down with it that way all the time.
Folks keeping score at home, Connecticut is usually going to be. This is the traditional Ecuadorian Connecticut. They've taken the seeds. It originated, grown in the Connecticut Valley here in the United States. They're able to do it cheaper with the natural cloud cover in Ecuador. So you have a nice light, really light brown wrapper. That's the Connecticut. And usually you're going to get some real grassy hay. They use a lot of lighter fillers in that because the wrapper itself isn't overpowering. So the Bella Artes, it came out a little bit darker than this because of the Nicaraguan soil.
And rosado, had a rosy...
That reddish, because the soil down there is either as black as night or as red as that hat. So, I mean, it's a really interesting, that the soil is just beautiful. And we actually got to see more of that soil when you just have baby plants.
And also making that field. What they were doing is they were actually taking rubble from volcanic eruptions hundreds of years ago. They're taking rubble and stone that's laying on top of the ground, and they're stripping the top of the ground. And you think, oh no, they're getting rid of all the topsoil. No, the topsoil was bottom soil.
Right.
I mean, you take all that stuff off. They make all these stone fences that you see around Esteli. They never made stone fences in Esteli until people came in wanting to grow tobacco, and then they
Take all the rocks out.
Take the rocks out, build them up, have these stone border fences, and then rich soil. I mean, it looked. We saw when they were just cutting into one field, and it just
looked like this.
It looked like someone had sprayed it with black paint or tar.
It was that. It's that dark.
Yeah, it was incredible.
So back into the blending a little bit, did you guys get a scope? Because I know we've talked before about growing stuff in different regions and how the soil just in the same lot can have different effects on the tobacco. And then you take it a step further and look at all those parts of the plant. So did you guys get a scope for their blenders down there and how difficult a task that is to, I mean, did you, when you guys tweaked it, did they pretty much know exactly what to go for? Did they say, oh yeah, this vintage, this leaf, this lot, and kind of know what to do? Because I can't imagine that being easy.
Yeah, and they don't, as new as we are to it, they didn't put any of that process on us. When you took the factory tour down at Perdomo, We got a little bit more in depth with Ricky in the fermentation room where they're baled, so we can take a look at what the different leaves that they're using, and they showed us
Okay.
We just got this in. This is a broadleaf.
Right.
This is
Okay. We're going to get into the nitty gritty.
No, not into the nitty
But
gritty.
we did get to see the burning characteristics. That was really interesting.
Okay.
Because when he lit a Seiko, it went.
Yes.
When you got the lighter with the Viso, it'd burn. It'd start burning all right and everything. The Ligero, I'm telling you, anyone out there that says they're making cigar out of all Ligero, as far as I'm concerned, you're a liar, because
Just can't happen.
it can't. I mean, it just can't.
It's not combustible.
Ricky, even I was asking Ricky, what about guys that say they're making a cigar out of all Ligero? Oh, no, who says that? You know, kind of thing. But it was also, he said, well, maybe if they made one that was a 38 gauge. But he says, man, it would be a really slow burner.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
that's the thing with the tobacco plant in general. We've talked about on shows previous. The tobacco plant in O'Hara, it's not that combustible. You know, they have to actually use different leaves to get that, and it's not great to smoke a Seiko. We've done that breakdown with Tobacconist University. We've also done it with Miami Cigars, where we break down each little piece. And when you're smoking a Seiko leaf, really not much flavor to it. You're kind of just getting smoke. So you need to kind of use that to blend in, and that's where all the blending comes in. That's why that's a process that can be learned over 100 years, let alone.
Right.
So
You know,
it's not
one
just
trip.
making a cigar that tastes good, but then you have to keep in the back of your head that it's actually got to burn properly.
Construction is probably 90% of the process.
Sure.
So you can pick all the tobaccos you want in the world and say, I'm going to shove it in this. It's just not going to work.
Right. And to remind some of you out there, the Seiko is the bottom third of the plant, and the middle of the plant's the Viso, and this Ligero that we're talking about that doesn't burn real well, but has a lot of the flavor that goes into your cigar. Those are the Ligero's at the top of the plant, and of course that Ligero, we've seen what happens. The reason why the Ligero has so much flavor is it's left on the plant longer than the other leaves. It's also newer, but when they take all the lower leaves out, all the nutrients are going to go to those top leaves. And that's what makes for nice wrappers and nice flavor in a cigar.
And there's other processes they use too. We'll
They
maybe
use
get into
Viso for wrappers too.
Yeah, some Viso. A lot of good Viso wrappers. But so we're down there, and we got to tour the fields again, field and factory, see what the process that AJ was doing. Had a really nice facility, new. They had a person actually. This is actually a pretty funny one in the rolling room. You know those, like, the section between where they come into the rolling room? There's like giant curtains, like you were going into a freezer, to keep the ammonias and all the stuff that they're doing in a rolling room. It's very potent smells, and there's a lot of tobacco going on.
A lot of rich smell.
Yeah, a rich smell. And you have these, they separate between like the offices or other rooms, so you know some of that tobacco doesn't leave, but they had a person just sitting there, and her job was to get up and wipe those. So they were like clean as the day.
Yeah,
they were.
yeah.
So her whole job is just to.
Her job is to keep those plastic curtains clean between the sections of the factory there.
When they had a nice, significant sized rolling room.
Yeah.
They do what? 75% of their sales is online at AJ's factory. Is that what it is? 70?
I'm not sure what it is, but it's somewhere around there.
Over half, I know I've heard that.
Oh yeah.
It's definitely over half. So they have quite a few brands for Cigars International. If anybody's not familiar with AJ Fernandez, they do Man of War, they do Ave Maria, they do Diesel. So those are very popular cigars for Cigars International.
I don't know if they still do 5 Vegas or not.
And if they do, yeah, 5 Vegas is very popular as well.
Sure
I'm not sure if they
do.
do. But they also have their own lineup, you know, San Latano, New World, Enclave. What else is in their lineup?
New Bella Artes.
New Bella Artes.
They just did the last call, which is an interesting one. And you guys got to actually
Yeah,
give a
yeah.
little bit of input with the last call,
Right,
which is
right.
been
We
a
got-
popular release in our store. You guys want to share your experience with that?
Yeah, so we get the early rendition of the cigar called Last Call, and their marketing was going to be AJ Fernandez's Last Call, basically geared towards the last cigar of the night. And they gave us this little cigar, and it was just packed with flavor. Very strong, small cigar. And we went out into the
Ricky
field.
really liked it.
Ricky really liked it. We smoked this. It's very, very powerful. And Ed and I are kind of looking at each other like, last cigar of the night. Like, this thing's like a real bomb. And Ricky's like, it's strong, right? And we're like, yeah, it's strong. We go out in the field. Ed and I talked that night. Maybe a little too strong for the last cigar of the night. But so we go out in the field, and there's AJ. Comes over to us. He doesn't speak great English. Says, thank you for coming. And then he says, what do you think of last call? And we're like, yeah, it's maybe a little bit. And he's like, too strong. I'm like, yeah, it's probably a little too strong. And he looks at Ricky, and Ricky goes, no, I'm telling you, it's not too strong. So they're a very good cigar.
Yeah.
And they had another new release, which I don't know what it is yet,
No.
that was just amazing. And they kept giving, remember I couldn't smoke enough of these little box press guys. I still have no idea what it is. It's
I
not
don't
a big
either.
release. It's not the Bella
Well,
Cortez.
they got a couple announced coming out. There's the Free World, which is going to be the sequel to the New World.
That's probably what it is.
Oh,
And then they had
that's what
another
it
one
is.
they just announced. Les Mis, or not Les Mis, that's a musical, but it's something to that effect. It's another new release they have planned. They just announced at the Intertabac, which is the big. We talked about the IPCBR before. They have a European equivalent, which is like a worldwide tobacco show.
Right.
And they announced the new cigar there, so maybe you guys
We're
got
going to send
a
you to
sneak peek of
Dortmund
that.
next year for that show.
I won't fight you on that one.
No, that was so. The reviews came out. The cigar's final release, and it's out in stores now. And I saw a couple reviews that basically says it isn't strong enough.
So your guys' fault.
Yeah,
You
so
ruined the last
we'll
call.
take a little bit of blame for the last call. I guess. Ricky, sorry, Ricky. AJ thought it was too.
We think it came out. I think it came out well. It's been
I think it's
popular
great.
shop.
It is. It's a very good
And
cigar.
I think the original story was initially a blend that I think the first iteration of that was a blend that he had come up with and he would kept around for himself.
Right.
And he would give it to his guests. I guess he's a big football fan, and so they'd always fire it up during the fourth quarter of the Monday night games and that kind of stuff. So, kind of a cool little backstory on that cigar.
Yeah.
Yes, and it is. It's very. I mean, the construction from AJ Fernandez factory and the attention to detail there, we really appreciate. I mean, every cigar I've gotten so far, just a nice burn.
Yeah.
Always can draw on them.
Very nice.
I don't think they draw test every one like Nick does.
No, but they do draw tests.
Well, you see different approaches on that, because I've heard
Yeah.
that they'll grab a bundle or a wheel of cigars at 50, and
Right.
they'll pick 3 or 4 out of there at
Right.
random, and they'll draw test them. If they all pass, then the wheel passes, which is probably a pretty sound way to do
They
it.
also watch for variations in weight.
Okay.
That to
Be a good
some
indicator,
to
too,
some
if
they
it's
use
too much
that as an
tobacco or too
indicator.
little
I know
tobacco.
Eric Espinoza watches weights close.
Yeah, because it's probably another good indicator of what's going to be. We
Right.
actually use that in our industry here with weighing. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's an accurate judgment of what's in the cigar, and it's amazing how close they get these things every time, all done by hand. We've talked about that over and over again. It's an artisan craft. It's something you have to see. If you're into cigars, you have to form a trip. You got to get down there and see it. I don't care if you go to Cuba, Dominican Republic, Esteli, Nicaragua, but it's just something you have to see to really get that extra appreciation for what goes
It
into
is.
something like
It
this.
is.
And he has those giant barns. What are those things called? And I can't think of the. It's around the field where AJ likes to ride his horse out. We see him taking off all of that rock, and he's got chickens and some, horses down at one of these
Yeah,
farms.
he's got
and-
horses. He even took on someone's horse that was in bad shape, and they're in cooperation with his. I forget what the guy is called that takes care of the horses for him, but they're nursing this one horse back to health.
Okay.
So
He takes his animals real seriously. AJ.
Very serious.
AJ,
his pigs seriously too. He kills one of them every year. They have a big
Pig roast.
pig roast, like
All right.
yeah.
AJ is a farmer first, and then a cigar guy second, I would say. He really enjoys those fields, and I don't even know if you can really find him anywhere else. But Ricky's been a good addition to the company here, and now he's been moved to the United States. They did some changing in the front office. I think the branding is going to come out and be good with AJ.
Yeah. All the new ones have the AJ
The band.
secondary
Yep.
band on it.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
But then back to the stack here, we have 4 different sizes that are offered: the Corona, the Robusto, the Toro, and the Gordo. Gordo's a newer size, but we all know the 660 in the industry has become really stock standard. We went with the 50 by 5.
Traditional.
Yeah, a traditional Robusto. We didn't go over the 50 ring gauge. We did a 48 by 5.
42
by
5 for the Corona.
Which is a traditional Corona.
And this one, I really, really enjoy how this one turned out.
Yeah, it's by far my favorite.
I think did we smoke on the Robusto or the Toro?
Down there?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, one or the other.
Yeah, I think the blend was either in this Robusto or the Toro. In the band, if you can get a nice picture of that, maybe we'll see it at the end of the show. But there's some pieces and elements to the band that's a lot of fun. On the front, we have the House of Lancaster Rose, which is going to be symbolizing the tobacco that we use inside. On the side of the cigar here, you have the Brandenburg crest, which is Ed's family's crest that he's able to use, which is great. And in one of the versions, in one hand he holds a key, the other hand he holds a moon, and we're here in Moon Township, so we thought that that was real fitting to go on there.
And the head of the griffin
is an eagle, which is my last name, so we're going to be keeping the Brandenburg crest around along with the Stack logo on it. This is an old traditional label, you know, modeled after the Bolivar. A lot of cigars are modeled after the real traditional. We like the real traditional look, but with the modern yellows and reds right on the front there. Made for a real nice package. That process, you know, I'll talk a little bit about, was interesting. You know, the first guy that they were suggested from AJ Fernandez, they didn't speak any English. So when you're dealing with this, there's another element to the process. First, we have come up with a blend, what we talked about, right? That seems easy. We're going to Nicaragua and we're smoking cigars.
Yeah.
So we pick out a blend, and that's actually the easiest part of the entire process.
For us, anyhow.
Yeah, I think for anyone. You know,
Yeah.
that's going to be the most fun, the most enjoyable. The rest comes with the challenge.
Then we get into logistics.
Right, so the labels, we used this for, they didn't speak any English and they couldn't really communicate back with us. And they were fine to be used by Ricky speaks Spanish. So I don't think he thought that there was going to be an issue with the label. But when we don't speak, we're here now, we're back in the United States, we're in Pennsylvania. We're trying to come up with a label design. They can't tell us what kind of design we actually need. So Ed calls Nick. And Nick gives us the name of a company called Action Labels. They're out of the United States.
Which AJ uses too.
AJ uses as well. And we came up with the elements, and then they came back with this beautiful label. So you have to get the labels made, and you have to ship them to Nicaragua. Okay, so they have labels, and now the way that the labels work, see, those are our proprietary labels. They have to be checked out of the label room. You know, because that's how counterfeiting comes in, is because they steal the labels. The label is the crucial element to the cigar. Without the labels, they don't even start production. Without the boxes, they don't start production. So Ed took a second trip down, picked out the box design and the cost that factors into these things. You know, a cigar and the tobacco and the label and the cellophane and the box, they all are part of what the cigar costs. They're just part of the industry. They're just part of the process.
And shipping it from Nicaragua to Pittsburgh.
Then you have to ship it in boxes, because they don't start production until our boxes are on site and our labels are on site. So now the box guy didn't speak good English either. So now you're dealing with the American company shipping it down there, them having it put in the room for checkout, them checking in how many labels that we have, creating the boxes, getting them to AJ, making sure that the logo is proper, making sure the box color is right. Then create the cigar, and then wait the appropriate amount of months before they can be put in the cellophane and into the box. Then you have to arrange to ship it to the United States of America. Talk a little bit about that process.
Well, you have your choices, and we chose to actually have it shipped straight from Nicaragua here to Pittsburgh. And there's a warehouse in Bridgeville that we use, and also is used by Jim Robinson of Leaf and Bean, or Leaf by Oscar, and then Sam Lucia uses a warehouse also. But the point in that was that the other way to do it would be to take it by ship to Florida and then have it trucked again up here. But because of the smaller amounts, especially the smaller amounts we're dealing with, it would cost us a lot more to store our cigars in Florida and then to ship them when they needed to come up here. This setup in Bridgeville has really turned out to work out real well for us, because we can get access to those 5 days a week, and it's a great thing. And I'll do this on camera. Thanks, Jim Robinson, for pointing me to a good guy, because what you have in the middle of all that is you have a fellow who is an importer, okay? And he's licensed and bonded by the government, by customs, to be able to do this kind of thing. And so that comes through him, and basically he's responsible for getting the cigars, and he gets them to us, and then we take it from there. So
and that's another misnomer in the industry. There's also a tax that goes on when it comes in the country called S-chip, and we've raised hundreds of millions of dollars for child health care, through the cigar industry, through S-chip, and that's something that Kevin is responsible for paying as an importer. It gets passed on, of course,
right.
But he's able to take care of that, and that's all the process of getting it here. So when people say, "Oh, was this cigar cost different than this cigar?" One, the tobacco plays an effect. There are more expensive tobaccos than others. If you're buying
Pennsylvania
tobacco,
broadleaf
is one of them.
Is an expensive.
And if you're buying tobacco, or if you're fully integrated, right? If you're vertical, your tobacco costs are going to go down if you're growing it all. If you're buying tobacco and then making a cigar, all these factors go in. The box, how fancy the box is, how you get it here, how much S-chip is, how many you ship at a time. Can you ship 1 million boxes and your cost goes down? See, there's a lot of things that factor into the cost of a cigar.
Workings. Probably the average cigar smoker's not thinking about.
Well, it's like our reorder of this cigar will cost us less per cigar than what our first order did.
Yeah.
And that's because
of
all these things. The only thing that could change that is the S-chip went up. So
well, we might have to make this a two-parter, guys, because there's a lot of. I'd love to get into some of the new FDA stuff that's putting a lot of strain on boutique companies like our own now, and I'd like to get into a little bit more behind that blending process. And I know we got some other stuff in the works too. You guys can go down there and blend one cigar, so maybe we could do a little sneak peek of that next time around. But I think that's just about all the time we have for today, fellas. So for Josh Eagle, Ed Brandyberry, and me, Josh Mill, get out there and burn one.
thank you for tuning in to this episode of Inside the Humidor. I want to thank you for your attention, and I hope that you'll take advantage of the opportunity to get your hands on a cigar, Stack Lancaster. Stack Lancaster is available at the Smokestack in Moon Township, at Bloom Cigars in the South Side Pittsburgh area. It's also available at Leaf and Bean, and available at stackcigars.com. That's one word, stackcigars.com.
Find the link down below.
Right, right. Stackcigars.com, and you can shop for Stack Lancaster. You can shop for some nice Fuente cigars released by Prometheus, some Black Label trading, and we'll be adding more cigars as time goes on. Thank you for Inside the Humidor.